Hi, everyone. Welcome to Shot Callers, a Storied Rivals podcast where we sit down with high school football coaches. Today, we're in the Muskingum Valley League with West Muskingum head coach Nate Brownrigg joining the show. Coach, thanks so much for joining us here on Shot Callers. Really appreciate your time. I know this time it's pretty busy because we're about a month away from week one, from the season starting, but I'm sure the juices are flowing now. A month to go until the season starts. Like, how's your off season going?
It's been really great. It's been hectic. This time of year actually starts to slow down for me a little bit because I have four sons and all four of them play baseball, and so like the springtime is actually way more hectic than football season for me. But it's been a really great off season, great summer. Had a vacation a couple weeks ago and recharged a little bit, and now it's been kind of back at it for the last couple weeks and ready to go.
Where'd you go on vacation?
We went to Hilton Head.
Nice.
So, and we go with a big group. One of my assistant coaches, Pat Riley, and a couple other guys that we're friends with and families. So it's 8 adults and 12 kids. Go down and rent a house and hang out on the beach, and it was really, really good times and relaxing. Like I said, kind of recharge and ready to come back and get after it.
That's super fun. Well, what's the rest of your off season look like? Because, like I said, we're about a month away from the season starting. 2-a-days are probably starting soon for you, and then I'm sure you've probably got a couple more scrimmages, 7-on-7s. What's the rest of your off season look like? And then, I guess, when do you start preparing for your week one opponent, Lakewood?
Okay. We have one more day of camp this week. We kind of go with a 4-day-a-week schedule for most of the summer, try to give 3-day weekends for the kids and also myself and coaches, with families to have that time. But, so we have 4 more days of camp next week. And then, 2-a-days, the official season starts that following Monday. And we got one more 7-on-7 where we're going to go work with Zanesville next Thursday. We've had a couple this summer, worked with Tri-Valley the other night, went to Gallia Academy a couple weeks ago. And, it's really just kind of at this point, finish our base install offense and defense, and then continue to rep things up for the coming weeks, leading into Lakewood. And as far as preparing for them, that's something that we've really kind of started, way back in the springtime, as far as watching some things from last year. Even though obviously schematically, teams, even including us, will be slightly different from year to year. Looking at what personnel they're going to have coming back. Kind of last year was their coach's first year, so
Right.
Kind of getting a feel for how they call games and things like that. Kind of started in the springtime, and then we actually just talked to practice today that it's kind of been a little bit big picture up to this point. We talked about goals and expectations, all that kind of stuff. But really starting, kind of about this time of year is when we start to really dial in on Lakewood, and take that one game at approach thing, and that's kind of been our focus, and it'll kind of continue to be in the coming days.
So you're 16-14 through 3 seasons now, going into year 4. 2-8 in your first year, 6-4, 8-2. So you can really see the improvement over the first couple of years with your tenure at West Muskingum. But that is already over twice as many wins as the program had in the last 10 years combined. And I'm sure you knew that, obviously, when you accepted the job a couple years ago. But how did you turn around the program, this fast? Because it doesn't always happen that fast for a new coach to come in, set a culture, get the kids to buy in, and then you start winning really almost immediately. It takes a season maybe of transition, and then year 2 and year 3, you really see the jumps. Like, how did you turn this around so fast to where you're going from 2-8, 6-4, 8-2, and then you make the playoffs and you would also win a playoff game? Like, how did you do it? What is the culture that you kind of installed into West Muskingum?
It's one of those things where, first off, it starts at the top of our school district, and we have a great administration, great support staff that really wanted to change, not just in football but with athletics in general. And you brought us in, and the culture change started in the weight room. I grew up as a coach under Justin Buttermore, who's now the head coach at Upper Arlington, and that was kind of always the emphasis that we had at Tri-Valley. And when I got to West Muskingum, the superintendent, Chad Schauger, who was a former principal of mine at Tri-Valley, brought in kind of the same idea where we now have in-school weight training that myself or my assistant coach, Pat Riley, who's also our head baseball coach, are in and run every single day. And so we see the kids, not just football kids, but all the athletes that are come throughout the day. And so that was the beginning. Was just getting kids to buy into that program. And once they started to see some gains, it really just kind of caught fire, and kids got excited about it. They get excited about picking up heavy stuff, and so that's where it began. And then it always takes, and I kind of reflect back to again my beginning of my career at Tri-Valley, and Cam West, who is now the head coach at Tri-Valley, was kind of like the Kickstarter up there, along with a couple other guys, Adam Bice and some guys that are still on staff up there. And for us, that ended up being Harley Hopkins. Our first couple of years, a kid with a lot of ability and talent. And then once we came in and he bought into our system, and his work ethic kind of took over, he kind of set the standard. And in the weight room, and then the way he played on the field, just ridiculous effort. I don't know if you've been around that long or not to remember watching Harley, but there's not a whole lot of kids in my career that play middle linebacker and quarterback.
Right.
And basically are responsible for the majority of your production on both sides of the ball. And that's just so he was like the standard setter. And after that, last year Ty Schauger kind of took over those reins. Was a kid that was a cross country kid as a freshman, and came in as a senior and was almost 200 pounds, ran for 1,300 yards, and was an all-state linebacker. Getting those kids to kind of set those standards, those examples, and then that just kind of continues to feed. And this year we have even more of those kids because this coming senior class, there are 4-year guys. So they were freshmen in that 2022-8 season, and have grown up through the program. And really, now that the standards are set, those guys continue to model those for the young guys, and it just kind of feeds itself.
Right. Yeah. I want to get to some of the guys that you've got coming back this year here in a few minutes, but you talked about one of the coaches that you kind of learned under with Coach Buttermore at Tri-Valley. You were also with Chad Grandstaff at Zanesville for a handful of years as well. So, I mean, how did the time you spent with them prepare you to be a head coach yourself? And were there things that you touched on it a little bit with Coach Buttermore, but were there things that you kind of picked up on from them that maybe you carried over to what you're doing at West Muskingum now? Like, how did your experiences with those two coaches, some of the better coaches that we've had in the area in recent history, like how did your time with them shape you into the coach that you are today?
Oh, absolutely. I feel very fortunate that I was able to come up under, like you just said, two of the most successful coaches that this region's had for a long time. Coach Buttermore, super, analytical and film junkie, along with Coach Grandstaff. But coming up under Coach Buttermore, there was an article in, I don't remember where it was, a couple years ago, about Coach Belichick's staff. He makes his guys like pen, pad every game, like draw every single play up, what everybody does on every single play. And fortunately, my first couple years it was pre-huddle, and so like we did that as assistant coaches for Coach Buttermore. We would spend hours and hours on Saturdays breaking down every single film, drawing up every single play. So that really kind of got the football IQ to go up pretty quick for me. And then I was fortunate that a couple years into my tenure with Coach Buttermore, I started calling offense. So I was an offensive coordinator from 2009 to 2018 or 17, I guess, at Tri-Valley. And so, very, from him, very much the football side of things, the, way to kind of, to run a big program, and how it takes, a lot of people going the same direction, administration all the way through. And then going into Coach Grandstaff, I'm probably older than a lot of people realize. I've been coaching for like 17, 18 years now, even though this is only my 4th year as a head coach. But when I got to Coach Grandstaff, the football side of things, have been fairly established. And I'm not saying I know everything, because nobody does. And if you kind of constantly trying to learn and observe and watch new things and come up with new things. But from Coach Grandstaff, really learn more of the connecting with players. One of the things I can vividly remember that I tried to model at West Muskingum is some of my first days with Coach Grandstaff, we'd be down with the youth league players, and he knew every single kid's name. And so, it's kind of from being around those guys, and those kids know him. And so coming to West Muskingum and having to kind of build a program from scratch, we knew it was very important to kind of build from at all levels, and make connections at all levels. So like part of the initial goal was to unite all of West Muskingum football. It was always before, like, you had West End High School, you had West End Middle School, you had West End Biddy League, and now we have kind of all of those under one umbrella. Not that I'm down micromanaging anything, but I meet on a semi-regular basis with our Biddy League guys. We have youth camps. Our junior high staff is in and out of the building all the time, or in at our practices all the time. We're down around there, so just kind of making that connection. That's something that I kind of got from Coach Grandstaff in my years there.
So you were the runners-up in the MVL last year, and really the game that kind of decided it for you guys was that game early on in the year against New Lexington. And I talked with Coach Board a couple days ago here on this show, and he gave your team some praise, and he said if there was a preseason poll, which obviously we don't do polls, for some of the leagues in this area, but if there were a preseason poll, he said that he would put West M at number one on the poll, be the favorites for 2023. I guess what's your response to that kind of praise from Coach Board and New Lexington? I mean, you guys battled last year, and really, I mean, it was your game that decided the small school in the MVL.
Yeah, kind of that respect goes both ways. I've talked to Coach Board. Really have a lot of respect for what he does, the kind of guy he is, the way he runs his program, really innovative offensively, especially. And so that goes both ways, and it was a great game. We came up short last year, and as far as the polls go, something like that, not something we think a lot about, but one of our goals, this season is to get over that hump. Our school has 4 MVL championships, and this will be the 61st year, and so that's something that that we're really got in our in the back of our minds as we work towards things. And at the same time, and I talk to the kids about this almost daily. There are a lot of people in the area, in the community, that have some expectations for us, that expect really big things from individual players and just us as a team. But the bottom line is that nobody has higher expectations for us than the guys in that room, because we're in there every single day, knowing what we do, how we do, and stuff like that. And so I would say we welcome those expectations, but at the same time, it's important for us to not necessarily listen or buy into that hype, because then we'll get tripped up by something right in front of us. And as I said a little bit earlier, even though that's going to be a big picture goal for us, it's always our number one thing is we're going to compete and try to win an MVL championship. We have to go very cliche, but one game at a time. So our focus right now is going to be on Lakewood, and as soon as that ends after that Thursday night, our focus is going to be on Marietta, and after that it's going to be Garaway, and then into the league. So hopefully, and again, this is something once the off season started in the spring, we've talked about it since then, about how that's something very different for West Muskingum. We were not expected to do much of anything for a long time, and so how our guys are going to respond and handle those expectations is part of the challenge of the year.
So I want to get into the guys that you have returning this year now. I mean, Ty Schauger was one of the big pieces that graduated for you last year. He said he had 1,300 yards on the ground. He was a linebacker of the year in the MVL, All-State. And then Slater Samsel, wide receiver, Cam Foraker at defensive line, a couple of guys that you lost. But talk about the guys that you have coming back this year to watch on both sides of the ball on your quest for a small school division championship in year 4.
Yeah, really excited about the guys we have coming back. Like you said, those 3 guys in particular, that graduated were our big shoes to fill. But again, the kind of idea with building a program is that the next guy is ready to step up, and it could be somebody that nobody's really expected or heard of, that's going to step in and fill in some of those shoes. But some of the guys in particular that we're excited about. Number one is our guys up front. We have 4 returning starting linemen, offensive linemen, from a year ago. 3 incoming seniors and an incoming junior who started a year ago, and then another senior who's been kind of dinged up for a couple years. But those are guys that 3 of those guys started as freshmen back in that 2020 season, and really took a lot of whoopings, and kind of did their time, paid their dues, whatever, and have kind of grown into mature leaders, tough, strong kids. So I'm really excited about seeing kind of where they are and where they take us. On the skill side of things, we have Rashid Cisse coming back, who in the beginning half of last season was a little bit dinged up, and at the end was as explosive as any player in the region, I think. And we have those expectations for him again this year. He's bigger, he's faster, he's stronger than he was even a year ago. So really excited to see what he can do. Carter Winland is another kid who started at linebacker for the last 2 years, incoming junior, who will be a tailback for us now, kind of filling Ty's shoes. And I think he's going to be one that I think really surprises people. He's just you're kind of, when I think of an MVL running back, thinking all the way back to the 80s through the 90s, growing up in this area, Carter is like what is who I picture. Just a hard nosed, kind of a almost scary at times kid with his attitude and passion. So he's going to be one, I think, that jumps out at people. Jake Anton coming back as a returning quarterback, kind of thrown into the fire last year as a sophomore. Also a really good defensive back for us, defensive back of the year in the small league last year. So his development has come a long way this summer as far as him like kind of anticipating and trusting things a little bit better. So that's for sure a handful of guys that we're really excited about.
Yeah, I know what you're saying about Rashid Cisse, because I'm on the coaching staff at Meadowbrook for track, and we ran into him a handful of times this year, and especially at the MVL championships. I mean, that kid can run. So he is definitely an explosive player for you guys, for sure. But Coach, I definitely want to thank you so much for your time joining us here on Shot Callers. You're really building this puppy up, man. I'm really excited to see what West End football does in year 4 for you. And this is a great team that you got coming back, and I'm excited to see what you guys can do in the small school in the MVL.
Thank you. We're the same way. We're excited about the year, and just going to kind of take it one day at a time, and also enjoy the process, because it's something we talk about with our seniors all the time too. That you never know when something's going to happen and things are going to end, or some of these guys, this will be the last time they put on pads. So enjoy every single day.